Welcome back. This is News Evolution, Evolutionary News with Laura Eisenhower, Patty Greer, and Alfred Lambremont Webre. In the old days, the antediluvian days before the internet with printing press, in the digital days, it would say, stop, hold the presses. And we're in that kind of a situation because lo and behold, one of our distinguished journalists has been being interviewed by the Boulder Press because the most incredible thing happened to NewsEvolution. And one of our journalists, Patty Greer, has displayed, in my opinion, as a journalist of some years, of 40 years standing. I mean, I'm sorry, I've got to show my age, but I'm actually aging backwards because of C60, but we won't get into that. I've shown Patty has shown journalistic integrity and stood up for freedom and protection of the press under the First Amendment, because it seems that a report that we did in our first show has, and it's a report that just taking facts off of the internet and reading them on the air and taking facts from employee organizations has triggered a multi-million-dollar organization into stating that they are so I don't know what the word would be, discombobulated, that I think, in my opinion, as an international lawyer, law professor at 2 universities, as well as judge, they filed a frivolous lawsuit against a member of our distinguished anchors of NewsEvolution. I can't believe it. Oh, I mean, a giant multinational. I mean, here we have Google, YouTube, Facebook kicking off all these people off of YouTube, and all of a sudden, a giant multinational who one of our journalists on our programs, all that they did, and this was after editorial meetings here, under the First Amendment, under the New York Times versus Sullivan decision, whereby one can make reasonable critiques of public figures as long as there's no malice involved. There was no malice. We had editorial decisions. There were editorial, it was all reasonable, lots of research, all publicly available information on the internet, and information that was sent from inside the corporate offices of this corporation and then was published on Facebook. It was shared widely on Facebook, all of these things. I know it was shared on my profile. I shared it in at least 10 groups. All of the information that was shared during that program was shared on at least 10 groups. And this multinational corporation, I don't know why, to draw attention to themselves or to try and, as they say, chill the freedom of speech of this distinguished publication and its journalists, attempt to, I don't know, as they say, intimidate? No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in the 21st century in August 2018. So it appears that this company, corporation, foundation, or their lawyers may have or may not have created a lawsuit against one of our journalists, which has been reported here and there in interviews. Do you want to say more about this, Patty? I know, because this is allegedly, because it's just that we've heard through various routes. Isn't that case? I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for being so polite about it. We have to stay polite and graceful, which is a comment that I get a lot. How do you do it? And aren't you scared? It's like, look at the three of us. Do we look scared? I don't think so. We've known what's going on. We serve from the heart, and that's what they hate about us. And I'm sorry to say it out loud, but this frivolous lawsuit, as you stated, in my opinion, is frivolous because it shows clips of all these terrible things I said, but it skipped the beginning of the sentence that I said, which was, this came from the David Wilcock letter verbatim. Or, this came from the gem drops verbatim, which I have 34 of. And so what I did was I found on YouTube one day, Facebook first, this surprising thing on my wall, which was pastel at the time, but it was Gaia.com. And I said, who's promoting Gaia on my Facebook wall? And I went, oh, wait a minute, sign the petition, cancel your subscription. What's that about? And all of a sudden I started reading, and it was somebody I didn't know who said, a petition has been put together motivated by the way employee and whistleblowers have been and are being treated by Gaia TV. Many people may not be aware of this, so it may be a little shocking. It can be signed anonymously, blah, 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 but they're asking people, these are 14 people or more inside the walls that work there. I can't imagine going back now that this is out. So they're doing this polite thing saying, please sign the petition, because the only way we're going to get out of this, what appears to be an uncomfortable situation, is if enough people unsubscribe, then, hopefully we can get rid of this company. And I'm like, good luck on that. So I went to see the change.org, and it was a whole website. I mean, it was really well set up. And I thought, wow, this is for real. And I had nothing to do with it. I just saw it. And like Laura and you, we share a lot of other people's data if it makes sense. So other people went to the website, and this is what they saw. Oh, bummer, change.org was forced to take it down. Thank you for contacting the change.org help center. We have received your query, and due to privacy policies, we cannot disclose specific details about this petition. All we can share with you is that it was removed due to a violation of our community guidelines. So what did they do? They went back up on another link, and they dropped change.org again. And whoever it is, they're really determined. So I'm like, wow, you're one of us, except you're inside there. So maybe perhaps some of those people that are inside there, only a few, actually said to me, how do you think we're going to clean this thing up if we're not on the inside? And I had to say, I mean, it is so hard to know who to trust anymore. But then Facebook, YouTube, all of a sudden on my YouTube, there's the gem revolution on a few of my videos. And I'm like, okay, in my face, what do you want from me? Group of over 14 current and former Gaia employees, all mega fans of David, Corey, and Emery, all moved to Colorado to work with Gaia in hopes of working with our heroes. This is somebody posting on my YouTube comments. I didn't write this. All found out that the CEO is in a Luciferian coven in Denver. All watched the CEO plot against our heroes. All observed a hostile work environment against our heroes. Proof of unethical and potentially illegal behavior has been gathered. All are prepared to release proof publicly. All are prepared to release proof. It goes on and on and on, but this is on YouTube. I didn't write it. Gem Revolution. So Luciferian, and then the gem drops start coming. I'm like, who is this? Who's doing it? And I don't know if you guys noticed today, but today I called to action David Wilcock and Corey Good to come clean and tell the public who is Gem and what's going on today. But both of them, I think you can tell, today was the first time I reread David's letter because I have been so busy. I just want to point out a couple things because nobody's saying that Corey did a lawsuit, unless, of course, you read David's letter and read the words. So in one of the paragraphs, first of all, let me say that the so-called Gaia employee movement, this is David Wilcock's official letter Laura, do you believe he wrote it or not?
Yeah,
Yes?
I do. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So David wrote this letter. I believe he wrote it also. I have no idea who these people are. I have no idea why they asserted that Corey and I were both going to be leaving. They made that up. Really? Okay. Leaving this job was only a last-ditch effort until I saw the scope of damage that my reputation is now suffering. Okay, here's the good one. Corey was concerned that you would think this movement had something to do with him or his legal actions. It does not. The grievances that Corey has put in writing regarding how he was treated are absolutely legitimate and mirror my own. Okay, so I believe this just said that Corey is in a legal action with the corporation. They also bear similarities to the nature and spirit of the many complaints being made by the Gaia employee movement, which is a condensed version of what we also see in secure online forums such as Glassdoor. This is in David Wilcock's letter, so I went and I researched after he said it to the public in his letter, and I wasn't the first to drop it. I don't know how many people Jem sent it to, but when I got it, it was like a hot potato, and I threw it to my friends. I had to call a journalist and say, read it with me, I'm nervous, and tell me if you think it's true, because I don't watch David. I don't read very much of his work, so I don't know his, how to recognize his writings. Okay, continuing. So the reason why everyone is yelling in your face is you. It is not a problem with them. I refuse to pretend otherwise any longer. These are people who have been deeply abused and crushed on the soul level, that they feel no other choice but to cry out in agony. Desperate people are willing to take great risks, which is a very sad thing in this case. This is why I hope Corey's problems can be resolved without any public legal filings. Okay. I have willfully ignored further down. These are things that I just put in bold because to me, this is information. If everybody read the letter, did anybody notice that he said this? Did anybody at Contact in the Desert notice that there was a Scientology booth? All the years of Contact in the Desert? Probably not. I did. I'm looking. You guys, you got to open your eyes. I have willfully ignored, this is David again. I have willfully ignored an enormous number of offensive, disrespectful, and abusive situations in order to do this job the last 6 years, primarily out of a sense of financial dependency. That was my own weakness, as I needed to grieve, blah, 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 with his ex who was abusive, and I don't want to go there, because this is not about David. It's about his letter and the words in it. It's about Glassdoor.com and the words that Gaia, Gaiam, Gaia Foundation, Gaia Lulu, Lala, Lele, I mean, whatever they want to call themselves, somebody sent me 30 different names. But whoever, I mean, what's going on now, in my opinion, is David told you. David told you guys everything, but everybody's going, oh, David and Corey and believe. And then the hashtag gem drops, the Gaia employee movement drops. And we give it to you on a platter. And Alfred's doing the man-sized stories, the sinister forces. What was that called? Sinister forces attacking ufologists. And it was a really heavy story outing a document from 35 years ago stating that the CEO was planning this trip to America to control conscious media 35 years ago. Right, Alfred?
No, there's a lot of, put it this way. We have now at News Inside Out published 3 articles that are on our website showing that advanced directed energy weapons have been targeted at attendees of UFO and exopolitics conferences, and including deaths, including an ongoing murder investigation. It appears that someone was murdered, or more correctly, politically assassinated with directed energy weapons at the International UFO Congress in February. That is, there's prima facie evidence of more probably than not that that person met a suspicious death. And we have hundreds of people that were hospitalized with the telltale signs based on a 283-page report put together by Captain Jerry Flynn, who has 26 years of experience in electronic warfare in the Canadian Armed Forces. So just go to peaceinspace.org and you'll begin to get the standard of care and the standard of evidence that we've used in our journalism. And look at those three articles on the newsinsideout.com website, and begin to review our NewsEvolution at truetube.co programs. This is our third program, and our first program, I'm trying to think, what is this multi-million dollar communications corporation in the multidimensional area trying to sue one of our three anchors at NewsEvolution at truetube.co for the act of reading David Wilcock's resignation letter that was all over Facebook, for the act of reading from the Gaia employees' comments on their work environment, which was public information, on the act of communications from the Gaia employee movement, which like QAnon. This was all over Facebook in at least 10 to 12 public groups whose combined membership is probably somewhere near 100,000 people. So I don't understand how the corporate lawyers, or what the corporate lawyers of this corporation are thinking, filing frivolous lawsuits. They can't do that. I mean, it just, it just boggles my mind, because this organization and its reporters are protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I say that as an adjunct professor at the University of Texas, teaching the Bill of Rights in the government department, which is yours truly. That's what I did in the 1990s. And it just boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. So they must have what they call deflection. It's something like a deflection. It's that when you're trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, you're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic you're trying to deflect attention. So you're trying to say, oh, let's go after a convenient target, even though you're filing a frivolous lawsuit, which actually renders the filing party quite vulnerable in the law. Back over to you, Patty.
They open themselves up for public discovery on all the details of what David claims and what their employees claim, and what I repeated as a journalist and a news reporter. I didn't even read through it slowly or carefully. After I read the first 3-4 pages, it was 18 pages of redundancy, repeating. I think they even want to sue me for a title you used, that you created, and boy, you do some woozies. When I see your titles of shows that I'm on, sometimes I go, oh God, Alfred, so dramatic. But I think I'm being sued. One of the many of the 30 slanders was a title you did, and you are free reading it on whatever. I think the trick is, hey, everybody look over there. But if we go back to the David letter, he wrote in the letter, which is public everywhere, but nobody, I guess, really read it, or they want to point at a girl because they're sick of us, right, Laura? Okay. In my opinion, he wrote, Ancient Aliens is Luciferian propaganda disguised as entertainment. David wrote, Luciferianism is the religion of the elite globalist group I oppose. Luciferianism is commonly used as an excuse for pedophilia, human sacrifice, cannibalism, genocidal aspirations, among other very unsavory things. This is in David's letter. Did you guys see this? Or did I invent all this? Seriously, like Gaia's lawyer said.
Isn't it ancient civilizations? I thought you said ancient aliens.
Ancient civilizations. Thank you if I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, they put in some subliminal something. Again, you know, you guys have to read the article, but it's coming out. So what happened this week was fascinating. I get a call from a local newspaper, not small, and they said, hi, is this Patty Greer? And I said, yes. And they said, we'd like your side of the story. Totally blindsided me. I was like, what story? And she said, well, I'm interested in your crop circle work. And I said, oh, great. I can't believe a local newspaper has the freedom to, you know, that's awesome. I'd love to. And she said, and your situation with Gaia. And I said, what situation? And she said, oh, you don't know? And I said, no, what? And she said, they file an 18-page lawsuit against you Monday in the Boulder County courts. I mean, it took my breath away for a minute. And when I came back to the phone, it was amazing how I said, let's start with crop circles. And I did this beautiful wonderland of what I know is true. And then I had to say, seriously, they filed a lawsuit. What did I do? And she said, well, I guess you haven't seen it. And I said, no, it's the first I've heard of it. She said, it's 18 pages of all the slandering you did. And they offer short clips from these videos you did where you're saying really intensely horrible things. I said, really? Did they only do the part of the sentence where I said those horrible things, but not the first part of the sentence where I said, in David Wilcock's letter, he wrote, did they forget that part of the sentence? And she said, well, it appears that they're suing you for slander. And I said, oh, I can only imagine, because I shared some of their employees' comments on the things we talked about, Glassdoor and #Gem, whoever they are. And so, yeah, I shared those things because to me, it's a story. I'm a friggin' filmmaker. You know, this is juicy. And this is not a vendetta. But when I finally was sent a copy of this thing, this 18-page frivolous lawsuit, I saw that their lawyer put in writing, and this is August, it was the August 6th, I guess, or 5th, on Monday, 2018, their lawyer put in writing that the reason I haven't made any money was the low interest in my 4 movies. Now, he obviously wasn't told that when they got my 4 movies pulled off the market, other than my website, cropcirclefilms.com, where you can see all my films, or on Amazon America if you can find me with all the hacking. But maybe they slow down in America, but 7 countries, I'm still for sale everywhere by illegal copyright, blah, 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 for hundreds of dollars when they're $20 here. So what I'm dealing with is still stunning levels of personal hacking and dishonoring by these guys. And I really don't know why they hate me or why they feel a need to have hidden my movies back then when I signed a 4-movie distribution deal that said exclusive rights. All 5 lawyers looked at me and said, I've never seen a contract like this. They were out to get you. How, you know, you signed this? So anyway, that's the response of 5 intelligent lawyers that have seen the contract, and I'm not private about it. I didn't sign any confidentiality agreement with them, and I certainly haven't signed a gag order like, I'm guessing, all their employees that are right now scared. Did you hear that paragraph that I read you in David's letter where he said, everybody's scared? Yeah. And then when you look at the Glassdoor reviews, you will see that the employees are saying, we are being recorded and filmed. We are being watched inside and outside. I can't imagine a work environment. And one of the employees stated they're even tracking our computers on Glassdoor. Now, I hope it stays up. So today, the first of what happened when they dropped that case was a journalist saw it, because the journalists are like, wah, on dirty court cases that sound like, ooh, this one's a winner. So I've already done 3 full interviews, and I've actually filmed a documentary. I mean, this is big stuff. And it's not my secret. The gem drops are going to get out. This is not about me. I'm just one of the people they shared them with. But when I asked them direct questions, they treated me like a human they cared about, and they gave me direct answers, which really impressed me. And that's what made me be willing to share their stuff. But all I did was share their stuff. I didn't write any of this. So for this cluster of lawyers that did a 2-page document in 18 pages, I'm sure they had a heyday with redundancy, but to get real, let's talk about the other statement that this lawyer put in writing, which is the reason Patty Greer never recouped the $2,500 we gave her per movie, which is nothing. The reason I didn't recoup that, he said, was because of low interest in her films, to which I posted all 5 of my EB awards for Best Feature Film, Best Music, and People's Choice last year. Plus, I have 3 other awards that aren't International UFO Congress, the biggest UFO event in the world. But what I'll say is 6 of my 8 awards I had received for the 4 films that they've hidden for 10 years, other than on my website.
So
Wait,
yeah.
I want to finish this. I
Yeah.
have to finish my thought. So their lawyer wrote that the reason they haven't sold is because there was low interest. Jay Widener wrote on YouTube his reason for why my films haven't sold. He said, Jay Widener, poor baddie Patty. Not only does she make terrible films, but she's a lousy business person. If she spent $30,000 per film for editing, then you got screwed. Wait to hear this. If you tell insane shit about a company you are dealing with, then I think they have the right to shut you up. You have to tell the truth, baddie Patty. You can't just make shit up like you are doing. Everyone, I'm warning you, have nothing to do with baddie Patty. She will say anything, apparently. This is an official YouTube comment. And so I want to comment to Jay and their new lawyer about how bad my films are aside from the 8 awards. And I'm not bragging, I'm just stating damn facts. The other thing is the reason the sales were low was because after Gaia got their $10,000 back from the royalties, and out of $16,000, I was going to get 50%. I got $1,250 for my first check. The second one was really big, and at 50%, oops, it went down to teeny little amount. But because I commented on that, they got mad at me, and they pulled my films off the Gaia TV platform. They pulled my films out of the Gaia catalog. And they took my films off every public platform and made sure that I had no income and no visibility. So when their lawyers stated, which I went public today with because I think it's impressive, due to a low level of interest by Gaia's subscribers in Greer's film, Gaia never recouped the advance payment. Accordingly, pursuant to the terms of the distribution contract, Gaia never owed Greer any further payments. So there you go. I got $2,500 per movie and gave them the privilege of locking those 4 films away from having honest, honorable, decent distribution for 10 years. Thank you, Gaia, for your marvelous integrity. And what also amazed me was the end of the lawsuit is so delicious. They actually said, I'll have to pull it up and end the show with it, but it's like they forgot to tell the lawyer that they had pulled my films. Oops. And they forgot to tell the lawyer that I was reciting a letter from Gaia's #1 guy that did write the letter. And they're forgetting to tell the lawyer that Jay Widener has been slandering me on social media for years. So if their law team hopefully sees this video, they're going to go, that's the girl they're talking about? She doesn't look delusional. She doesn't look insane. What's with you guys? This girl? I mean, but they put in this 18-page pile of whatever, these teeny little clips where I'm saying your title or repeating David's worst statements, or this one from the gem drop. CEO equals no backbone. CEO equals must control disclosure. CEO equals must control community. CIA op, Denver Luciferian Coven equals CIA front. Deep state censorship of disclosure confirmed. Employees, talent kept as slaves, unaware. Gaia CEO makes millions from David Corey and Emery. Made reliant on CEO. And it goes on for a few more pages, but I didn't say these things. And if they want to continue to harass me, and I'm not suing them for harassment, but to me this is harassment. An 18-page pile of hooey about things I repeated about people that work for them. This is my stuff, babe. This is your stuff, Gaia, and you need to take responsibility for it. And they're not talking about the employees. They're not talking about the actors or speakers. They're talking about the top people and the unfortunate, what appears to be Luciferian element that is pervading the energy there, as well as watching their every move and listening to their every breath. I wouldn't want to have that in my face, but I didn't have such issues with the theft of my films or the suppression. For me, when I hit the floor at the airport and got hit by a weapon for the second time, I knew it. That's where I drew the line, and I started going really public. And as soon as I went public and said, I was in a wheelchair and I was a gymnast. I mean, I'm not like Patty crippled, but I got crippled by whatever happened on the last day at Conflict in the Desert, that Joshua Tree thing that I used to speak at, that was apparently taken over. In my opinion, it appears as if this company has taken over most of the, well, they certainly control Amazon, YouTube, Vimeo, but they've taken over so many of the spiritual schools and the spiritual studies that, you know, it's again why I care enough to make a difference and to step on this, because I do have people that I care about. I do care about the food supply and integrity, and thank you guys for being a part of this, because this is not going to go away. And by them hitting me with this frivolous pile of whatever, it made the news media come to me. Because they're like, those words, why would anybody say such? Why would anybody put themselves out on the line? Why would she do such a thing? Well, the words forgot to include, these all came from your employees and top speakers. Your big movie stars wrote these things, and so did the employees that work there. So I rest my case. I do believe Gaia, and all their other names shot themselves in the foot by further harassing me with this ridiculous lawsuit, when whoever watched the videos only grabbed the little ones that they could get away with. But I think people are going to know better, and it did all come from other people. I'm not going to take credit for all that. But any statements I made about anything really dark and dirty, I got from people in Boulder that had first-hand experience. I've been here 45 years. I'm one of the worst people that they could be doing this to, because people respect me, and I'm not going away.
Now, thank you, Patty. As you know, we have, and we're moving forward. We have a whole feature planned and topic planned in this program, and yours is the first segment. And the title of this program of NewsEvolution is, quote, Deconstructing the False Ascension Meme and Revealing True Ascension. Now, Patty, could you please take your report, such as you're reporting it, and just share with us how you feel that the news update that you've just shared, kind of the breaking news update that you just shared, kind of is an example of and fits in with the subject of deconstructing the false ascension meme and revealing true ascension.
I think that this is going to be looked at as one of the biggest stories of changing the history of ascension and the old programming of secret space, UFOs, crop circles, all that stuff that they packaged and sold out. And so I think that what we're doing here to deconstruct the false prophets and the false companies that look like, oh, yoga, peace, and love, when meanwhile, they put in writing, this is me doing a vendetta because my films didn't sell because their people didn't like it. This is me deconstructing a false narrative by showing my EB Awards. Hello. So this morning I have to say that I got the first article of many. People keep calling me. They want the story. So, and because I have nothing to hide, and I have more than 1,550 screenshots of evidence, I'm like, sure, how much can you handle? Because I've got a ton. And then I just load them up and see where they land. So this morning, the first article went out, and it was called Denver Business Den, which is what, the business report of Denver, but it was called Business Den. And so I was like, oh God, first article's up. I sure hope she knows truth from lies, because she interviewed me and somebody from the corporation. And so the article goes up, and she did a really nice job. And I knew from the start that she was a woman because, bang, there's my 5 EBs on the top, which says to me, she got the picture that I'm not pretending to make movies that are so-so. So anyway, the second interviewer that I had spoken to a couple days ago that told me that they were suing me, and she watched me go through the whole process. She called me back today because she wanted to give me a few days to digest and balance out, which I loved. That's a sign of a good journalist. So she comes back for round 2, and I had everything prepared. And so she got piles of screenshots again. And as we were talking, I said, the Business Den did a report, so you're not going to be the first. She dropped it today, and she goes, oh, what's the link? And so I go dig it up, bang, it says, not 404 error. It says epic 404, site not found or article not found. Epic 404. I've never seen that word. And I screenshotted it because why wouldn't I? I'm a documentarian. Oh gosh, nobody should mess with me. So I screenshotted it 11:48 or whatever time it was that the site was down. The article's gone. And I sent it to the person that wrote it. I was like, hey, guess what? They took your article down. Yeah. And so I'm still on with the other reporter, but I'm like, this is, wow. So the other reporter's going, is it really gone? And I said, yeah, I got a screenshot. Here it comes. Send. I mean, the internet, gotta love it. So I sent her the screenshot, and she's seeing the other lady's article, and it says epic 404 error. So then it's back up about 20 minutes later. Yeah, but I screenshotted it, so I'm not making this up. Oh, this is so ridiculous. And the second newspaper is watching this in real time. Wow, it went down? Yeah, it's gone. By the end of our interview, wow, it's back up. Wonder how many changes were made. So the interesting thing about Business Den, if it's the Denver Business Report, is that I told these reporters that perhaps I should send you the screenshot that somebody sent me that the corporation bought in the 80s or 90s, the Boulder Business Report, business, the Longmont Business Report just north, the Northern Colorado Business Report, and I think one in Wyoming. And they sent me a screenshot, links. So the corporation, Gaia, bought all the business reports. Wonder why they would want to have any control over what people say about businesses in the area. What do you think? Back to you.
Well, this is really extraordinary, and we know that there has to be a synchronicity because this is really epic. As we stated at the outset of our series of this story really began in October 1987 when myself and my co-producer, Mary Houston, both of us of WBAI-FM, co-hosted and co-produced at the NPR station in Boulder, Colorado, the harmonic convergence radio show that was up on the NPR satellite. It was carried throughout at NPR stations throughout the US. It was covered by the Washington Post. Our featured guest was the inimitable Jose Arguelles and many others. We were tracking essentially the landing of the positive timeline and our moving out of the catastrophic timeline. And so that essentially we were showing that all of those people that were counting on a catastrophic timeline and building all those underground bases were sort of wasting their $3 or $4 trillion. And they were worshiping the wrong gods. And meanwhile, as the Urantia book says, Lucifer and Satan were being executed and put to death. Their souls were being exterminated because they wouldn't tell God, oh, I'm sorry for having rebelled and caused all of this damage in this quadrant of the universe. And, you know, people can read all of that. They can read all of the exopolitical analysis. It's there. Just go to urantia.org and read a lot of other excellent analysis. So I think that this segment should itself be entitled Deconstructing the False Ascension Meme and Revealing True Ascension. It's sort of a case study. That's my 2 cents. That's my journalistic two cents. Okay, before we move forward to our second segment, do you have anything that you wanted to say in this segment? And then we'll ask Laura to join us for her segment. Patty, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes. I think I like to begin and end always by saying what I truly believe is real is that everything is coming to the surface to be healed. Everything dark is being pushed to the surface to be healed. And I believe that's the process we are in right now, where we're seeing all this darkness. We're seeing the exposure of all the pedophiles in Hollywood and learning things that nobody would ever think could be happening on this planet, but the exposure is happening. And what needs to come of this is that people need to realize the only way to heal it is for everybody to step out of their gag order and tell the truth. So that is my message, is the only way we're going to save all of us and get through the other side of this issue that David and Corey and a lot of employees are having at Gaia. This is not me making stuff up. This is the employees and David crying out for help. And I'm not being dramatic. I read you the words. I think they're crying out for help because they're scared. And I live in a town where a lot of people are scared of them. And there's no reason to be scared of people unless there's something that they're doing that makes you uncomfortable. And if everybody's under a gag order, which it appears that they are, and they threaten people with lawsuits, and they also say, I have 2 experiences firsthand, if you don't do what I say, I'll destroy you and you will never work in the field again. They didn't say that to me. They said it to 2 other people, pointing to other people. But I mean, this is a bully situation. It's bully tactics. And I'm not a bully. I'm a lady, and I want this over with. And I think, bottom line, Gaia shot themselves in the foot trying to sue somebody as innocent as me, because now all the news media is coming to me and saying, give us your side of the story. Are you really yelling, Satan is hell, hell? And it's like, no. But I imagine the little teeny clips that they sent you or that are in the lawsuit are only those clips without the first half of the paragraph. So I can't help Stuck on Stupid, but I certainly can expose everything I'm going through. And that's the promise that I make publicly, is that this case will stay extremely public, and I'm transparent because I have nothing to hide, but perhaps they do. So the discovery will be so grueling for them that if they can't continue this, it's their party.
Well, I know that from the point of view of NewsEvolution at truetube.co, we'll be asking you for updates on the developments in this matter, because I mean, when one of our anchors, this happens to one of our anchors, this is like, hey, wait a minute, this is especially on our Ascension show. I can't believe it. I mean, this has got to be somebody's cosmic sense of humor someplace. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, so shall we transition then? I see that you're okay. Good. I'm not sure where Laura is. Laura, are you here or?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, good. You know, we don't have video with you.
Yeah.
And so.
Like, it's really hard to follow. I mean, I did. I have,
oh, here you are.
Yeah, I have probably 22 slides that I'm looking at that don't have pictures that I don't want to put up that I would be referring to.
Yeah.
But I just don't see how it fits in with this show. I think that we should just finish the show with this whole dialogue about what's going on with Gaia, because it seems like it has its own place. This is breaking news as far as what's going on with Patty. And I'm kind of coming in with that nothing really that has to do with Gaia. And by the time people get to me, they might be so filled up with this particular topic that it'd be too much of kind of switching gears, that maybe you guys, if you could edit this out, could wrap up the interview and create a whole complete interview, because we're still under the umbrella of a team. And then maybe, you know, kind of just have another maybe interview where we just go into more of the topics. Because I guess my thing is right now the pedophiles. I can't hear you, Alfred, if you're talking.
So we're on the air now, Laura, and there's no editing. So I'm a little bit confused. Are you doing your segment? Yeah. We're on a live show and we're not doing editing.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah. So look, I tell you what. Why don't I go into my segment, and then on Ascension, and then after we finish that, you can see what you would like to do. Does that make sense?
I think really deeply involved thing. I wasn't sure if we were recording or being live, and that's totally fine that we're live. I just
no. But we are live recording. Remember, that was our agreement. Because yeah, that's our agreement.
I think it's very relevant. I think this pedophile issue is extremely relevant, because all these movie stars and all this Hollywood and all these movies themselves made themselves out to be La La Land, peace and love and ascension. And meanwhile, I mean, look how many pedophiles have been exposed that are in Hollywood. I think it's very appropriate, your segment, to this comment of fake prophets.
Right. I just, you know, we're already an hour in and it's been mostly about Gaia. So it's almost like this is breaking news as far as.
Well, what we're having now is an impromptu roundtable on Patty's issue, and that's what Patty really asked for. And I can see that why there's just a bit of confusion. So let's just put on our round table hats and have a discussion now about this whole thing. I mean, here we had planned, and we're still going to complete it, because I have a smoking 17-slide presentation on Ascension in the Omniverse, which I'm going to present.
Oh, I know. It's just this topic was.
And no, wait. See, for me, it's all seamless, because
I think so.
Patty just presented a case study on deconstructing the false ascension meme and revealing true ascension, because the corporation is monetizing and commercializing false ascension and just deconstructed itself with a frivolous lawsuit. And
That's
so
what
that Patty's comeback, Patty revealed true ascension in her segment by saying all the reasons why this is outlandish what the corporation did.
Of course, and it's
Yeah,
completely
yeah. So that's my contribution in this round table. So what would you like to say, Patty, in the round table, and then we'll come to Laura. Or Laura, do you want to jump in now?
I want Laura to go.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there is an artificial ascension agenda. It's all about controlled disclosure. It's about false light energy that would link us into a lot of different memes and a lot of different externalizations of what this whole process is about, which is really disturbing. And people have really lost sense of who they truly are and the ability to just be like natural and just authentic and just able to go through a organic alchemical experience in order to remove the toxicity and the programmings from their system so that they can connect to zero point and true source without letting these, pantheons and sort of lower creator gods and all these, just this relying on these different aspects of the soul architecture that we all carry to either feed on or distort. Like there's a false Archangel Michael matrix that we're contending with. There's all sorts of beings that people like claim to channel that are a part of that astral parasitic false ascension net that most people are influenced by. These artificial intelligence systems have been designed and weaponized to basically cause or specialize in emotional and spiritual harassment to the point where people feel incredibly defeated. So they think, I'm just not getting it. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not able to channel. For some reason, I'm just not getting it. When actual fact, a lot of the people who think they're getting it might not be getting it at all. And that level of defeat and insecurity that develops causes people to give their power away even more, because there's a feeling of when you're attacked that somehow you're not able to reach that level that some people are claiming that they have as far as glamorizing their spiritual abilities, which I find, incredibly disturbing. We have to look at the deeper issues that are going on with these power structures. I mean, a lot of people still defend these Hollywood actors, and they've scapegoated a few of them that needed to be called out. But at the same time, why isn't there more investigation when it comes to the ones that are America's sweethearts, or they could never go wrong? And then you see something on Jimmy Kimmel where Tom Hanks has his daughter in a pageant called The Sexiest Baby. I mean, who does that to their child and sexualizes them? You can find it. It's him. It's archived. It's easy to find now because somebody created a video out of it. There's Project Monarch, Project Mockingbird, which is basically the mind control of humanity through things like Hollywood, and false ascension memes that come through different organizations like Patty was talking about. My only resistance was I really wanted to hold space for this show being maybe, centered on that, and then we could do part 2, not to say that it's not completely relevant. So I didn't realize we were live, and then I just kind of like, whoa, I didn't want that to come out wrong. But so the plan is really to create a new world order system where pedophilia is accepted along with sacrifice and ritual abuse, which we're starting to see is this normalization with things like MAPS. What is that? Something about being a minor attracted person or something like that. And so the way we can fix this is recognizing the hidden knowledge, recognizing self-awareness, recognizing where the hooks are. And it's interesting because really the plan with this particular creation was that we would go through a certain level of duality and conflict to have it push us to the edge so that we would wake up and learn the right use of power, but it got out of control. Now they use timeline manipulation to cheat death so they can continue to clone themselves and jump timelines to never have to go through the death process, which would create sort of a karmic retribution but purification process. And the retribution part is more that life review of like, what does it mean to be a soul? When you're disconnected from source, you begin to become a modified being. You begin to link into artificial intelligence to the point where you become soulless. And these spirits that haven't had bodies for a while have become much more parasitic, and their role or their intention or agenda is to fragment other people, particularly ones that want fame and power and are greedy, to fragment them so that they can inhabit their bodies instead. So when we see people and we're like, oh, that person's evil and that person's so dark, we have to kind of step back and realize that's not even that person anymore. And that there's just this agenda that is so mind-blowing that is trying to suck us into it, because we're the battery, we're the life force that they rely on. And that's why we're not completely wiped out yet, because if they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for us. All their technology is based on imitation, and the imitation relies on the storylines in the organic blueprint to be able to mimic it enough to then trick everybody into something that feels similar and familiar. Same like with religion, we'll talk about Jesus, we'll talk about Mary Magdalene, we'll talk about, and if people are like, oh yeah, that feels familiar. Everybody feels it in their soul essence because we're a part of those archetypes. We're a part of those beings, but they twist it just enough to capture our life force, and they siphon it, and them siphoning it is the only thing that batteries up or powers up those dark technologies that could potentially lead us into a very disastrous situation. And we all get a lot of criticism sometimes, and there's a lot of people that are in this conquer divide mentality or creating projections and assumptions because they don't want to hear this, because they've bought into something or that something's hooked into them. It's almost like the entity is speaking for them, and that rage and anger of no, like kryptonite, like turn that light off, or that truth, because it's a truth frequency. The whole deal is sovereignty. True ascension has to do with connecting into the 0-point unified field, to recognize that this is all within us. It's in our DNA. It's in our chakra system. It's connected to the earth grids on the planet and the multidimensional cosmos and every dimension of the time matrix. And this digressed race is in absolute survival because it decided that it wanted to be the powerful bloodlines and work with time travel technology to begin to modify certain things for it to be weakened so that it could have the upper hand. Weakened by amnesia, weakened by fluoride in our water, chemtrails, nanoparticles that get into food, they get into, pretty much everything. And, one of the important things that we have to, recognize is the nanites in the air, food, and water are stimulated by a supercomputer. And it's in sync with different weather patterns and different things in the media and different big events that are going to happen, even natural biological cycles that are going to plug people in even more. So I think when we start to feel progress within ourselves and as a group together as a humanity, and we're about to take a leap, something just creates this virus where everybody's really attached to something, and you're just like, what are people operating on here? Why is everybody in this trance? How can they not see through this? And this is really the artificial ascension, is how this computer is creating this net that's kind of running the show and determining what people will desire, what people will fear, what people will think, what news stories are going to stand out to them as being something to be outraged about versus things that are just going to get blown under the carpet. It's like, yes, let's get all outraged about the immigration issue that's been around for a really long time. But, oh yeah, Tom Hanks is still posting on Twitter like nothing's happening, and somebody accused him of something that needs to be investigated. And I believe in the whole, fair trial. I'm not here to demonize anybody without all the evidence, but I really have a strong affinity to these survivors because people with the same stories are my clients, and I hear it firsthand, and I feel their struggle with wanting to come public. So we have to understand that the false ascension light sometimes comes in the form of archangels or different deities and their names and this and that. But if we look at the satanic practices, it uses those same archetypes to siphon, and they've been compromised in these lower dimensional fields. It doesn't mean that their higher aspects aren't still pure, but we're not in that kind of density that can reach into that until we become sovereign and until we have discernment, because there's a lot of imposters. So I recommend people, I have my copper thing that my husband made with magnets, Tony Pantelleresco, Pantelleresco. has a great video called Protecting Yourself Against Frequencies and Nano. So when we are thinking about directed energy weapons, going to event, anything, just the things that can come through our computers and phones, it's important that, you arm yourself, because we're in a war right now, and the war is on us. And it's trying to siphon our life force and consume it so that it's in power and it's got a few to at least live on instead of this mass population. That's why there's a lot of depopulation agendas. As long as they have enough of a battery, everybody else can go, because we have no real worth to them, because the soullessness that comes from this level of, digression due to being power hungry is ego-based, which isn't a self-sustaining energy without source energy being integrated into it. It starts to branch off and it starts to create its own agenda, which is, part of the metaphorical Luciferian rebellion thing that everybody plays a part in. So if we start to blame entities and beings and, or we start to worship, if we blame or if we worship, if we choose light or if we choose dark, and we choose any extreme, that's when we're most vulnerable. The best thing that we can do is integrate polarity, recognize the light and dark within ourselves, the way that they interact. Instead of be like, oh, it's all light and love, and you can just think it all away, and all those new age deceptions, or screw it, the light let me down and there is no God, I'm just going to join up with Satan. It's just like, how about you just recognize on an organic level that you're made of light and dark, masculine and feminine, multidimensional cosmos, and you just reconcile these different forces within yourself and find some level of harmony, neutrality, and connection to true source, which is not something that requires worship. It requires embodiment, presence, devotion, integrity, and being a good person to one another. So I think it's just very important that people aren't afraid of themselves. And in the feeling of any form of psychic attack, you don't take it personally and project upon yourself that you need something so external that you begin to follow a belief system that keeps you in a place of being small. And that you don't feel the need to go to any polar extreme, because that's where the entities or beings or these, dark agendas hook into the most, is our lack of balance. It's imbalance that makes us most vulnerable. And that's why when we see these stories coming about and people are like, oh, it's all about the left or the right, or the right's trying to do this. And I can't even, it's like, I almost get dyslexic. I'm like, right, left, and like, I don't even, it's like Kathy O'Brien put out her information before Q and Trump ever existed. This is not about Republican or Democrat. People have been calling out George Bush and Gerald Ford, and they were Republicans. Everybody just still is locked into that choosing a side, and they think that these conspiracies or these stories are being created out of this loyalty to one side or the other, to the point where they have to smear anybody who doesn't support them. It's like, who would want to smear Tom Hanks because he doesn't like Donald Trump? Your next door neighbor might hate Donald Trump, and that's a lot more accessible, right? It's just all these excuses. And NBC just came out with a news report that basically said, the conspiracy theorists are sabotaging the A-list actors. And what I'm really grateful about is that people like Fiona Barnett is getting the attention she deserves. Her page is building. People are listening to her. And, I have a lot more to share, but I know we're more in a roundtable forum, but I just wanted to add that bit. And so when we look at, what Patty's talking about, and the fact that there's a lot of red flags, and, where there's smoke, there's fire. And this was not coming from her. She's got her own thing with them, but this was coming from employees. This was coming from a letter. This was coming from leaked information that has nothing to do with any, lack of integrity on her part, as just being a smear campaign. She's doing her job as a journalist. And this is an example of something we're seeing in a much larger picture, because all these organizations are doing the same thing. And when you break it down to the micro, it reminds us that in our own personal life, in our own micro storyline, when it comes to friends, partners, and how we operate in the world, our own personal storyline feeds the larger. And there's no room to get away with a bunch of BS or think that it's okay because, somebody else coerced you into it. And, anybody who wants power and money are the easiest prey. And really, the true power in the universe is love, and our ability to come together and recognize the true abundance that Mother Earth provides for us. The rest of it is the demon. And if people really want to move away from that world and really experience the upgrades, be willing to let go of the false light, the false ascension, the lies, the maybe false channelings. I'm not saying everybody's false at all, but it's just something to have discernment about, something to step back and just ask oneself, is this really safe? Is this really serving me? The false light can give us a sense of life force because it boosts our ego, but that ends up expiring. It ends up actually destroying our DNA over the course of time, just like cloning. It looks, it seems okay because it's, just have a new body. And then all of a sudden you can't reproduce anymore. All of a sudden, if you die, you never come back. So you have to keep the life cycle alive through time travel jumping and kind of tricking reality to keep you from having to physically die. And then that's the rest of your existence, unless you can begin to really turn your attention back to true source creator that it doesn't have a name necessarily. It's just the source we all came from. So yeah, that's kind of my little piece, but yeah, it's just really important to watch what you put in your body. Think about the words that you're speaking. Don't be afraid of the negative shadow work that you might have to do on yourself. Don't buy into somebody else's projection of how it should look and how it should be. But the most important thing is that the foundation that we rest upon is integrity and unity consciousness, and whatever needs to be purged and cleared in the process, as long as we hold that intention, is completely necessary. I mean, imagine if we were on a fast food diet for a couple months and then we said, but if I eat spinach today, it's all gone because I'm having a positive no, you might have to detox. So don't be afraid of it. And there's people like us to help you walk through some of those processes that can, make you feel like it's all coming to an end when really you're just beginning.
Awesome. That was fantastic. I loved every word. You're so balanced. You're so real. And we're all dealing with such humorous criticism on some levels. The only thing I wanted to make a small point of is you mentioned a guy, Tony Pantalesco or Pantalero, whatever his name is, who I've noted clearly because he's really anti-C60. He thinks that it is going to control people's brains, and he's done some videos where I'm just like, oh God, here's another troll. So I'm not sure about him, but I did watch him diss a product that all three of us are doing. Laura, Alfred, and I are all doing C60 Purple Power, and I know for myself it's made a huge difference. I know for Alfred it's made a huge difference.
I haven't been that disciplined because I bounce around between so many different things that I haven't been very consistent with it. I think that there's mimicking kind of products that one might be discerning about. I mean, I haven't looked into it enough, and I haven't looked into both sides enough. I can only really follow my intuition. But I know the power of copper and magnets. I've seen the effects already. I've seen the effects of C60. I think there's, other versions, just like artificial intelligence. It's like, there's nothing wrong with Archangel Michael. It's not about, there's something wrong with these archangels. It's just, there's a certain point where somebody can take that energy, record that energy. Because the thing is, if we're in a low enough level of consciousness, the computer machine type deal can mimic, track, and basically get the data it needs in order to replicate it, in order to imitate it, in order to create a version that is so similar but so destructive. And so I think that the lines are just getting crossed between everybody, but everybody is on a similar wavelength that just wants the same thing for each other. And sometimes it's very easy to slip into a concern or a worry. Maybe it was heard through the grapevine or somebody had a bad experience, but it's not necessarily the product that you have and that you've given to us. So that's just my 2 cents on that one.
I do like to share it with people that I care about and people that have been hit like I was and really need the help. So yeah, it's been one of my splurges is to share it with people I care about. So
yeah, I'd like to jump in here on the C60 also to make 2 points. Number one is that in terms of the research that I've seen, there's a big difference between the C60 purplepower.com, the C60, which is of an astronomical source that has reached Earth through panspermia from astronomical sources. And that's how the carbon 60 molecule that got the Nobel Prize in 1985 that is what we're concerned with functions. There is I would call it bootleg C60 that has no carbon-60 molecule that's being marketed by the New World Order for sabotage purposes. And so I make a big distinction between that. I had a personal experience, and that is a person here in Vancouver, a colleague who went to the June 30th, 2018 Architects for a New Paradigm UFO conference here in Vancouver, which we had requested to ANPU that they not hold, and was targeted with and hit with directed energy weapons. And we broadcast her report. I met with her for several hours in the last week, and was able to give her some of the C60, and she's been taking it for a week, and she reports extraordinary she reports extraordinary benefits from it in terms of stabilizing her after the directed energy weapons hit, and in terms of even her dreams, which are now have shifted and gone back into a positive dream after the directed energy weapon hit that occurred at the June 30th UFO conference. And just by the way, we have not heard anything either before the conference or up until now from Jordan Pease, the organizer, from the chairman of the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library, who's the niece of Danny Sheehan, who's the former general counsel of the Jesuit order, whom we corresponded with because he was the general counsel of the Institute for Cooperation in Space when I was the international director. So these people are just stonewalling us, as have the directors of the International UFO Congress and all of these other organizations. I hold a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health. This rises, in my judgment, to the level of an epidemic of harm that has occurred at the UFO conferences. And in my judgment, as a former administrator of a federally qualified community health center in Brownsville, Texas, serving 90,000 patient encounters a year, where I oversaw 20 physicians, 120 nurses. The organizers, by and large, in the UFO field who have stonewalled us are administratively and from a public health point of view irresponsible. So I just have to say that. Now, I have some comments for the round table, but before I get there, I'd like to make a suggestion and get everybody's comments. And that is that I would like to suggest that we reconvene at our next program and formally address our original topic of deconstructing the false ascension and revealing true ascension, so that we can really give that all it deserves. Because hey, I put some time in my 18-slide presentation, and I'd like to get the audience attention. And so, what do you think about that? Should we like do our ascension program for next week? Does that sound good?
I feel like Patty's story right now is like breaking news.
Yeah.
The attention that it got.
Yeah.
I put together about 20 slides myself, and I haven't been able to put it in the format of.
Right.
And I'd really like. I mean, it's really important stuff, and
yeah.
I would like part 2 as well. And I know we've already been on for about 90 minutes, so.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. No. We've been on for 109 minutes. So.
Well, I really thank you guys for allowing me the.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. But we ain't finished yet. So here is my contribution to the round table. Would you guys like to hear it? My contribution to the round table is this, is that I think that this multi-million-dollar communications corporation was motivated by DIP, D-I-P. D for deflection, I for intimidation, and P for panic. They panicked because their employees are run amok. Their star has run away. He published on the internet, which you can find on Facebook with over 2 billion members and on stuff. He published this letter, which our anchor read from. I mean, that letter is more widely circulated on Facebook than Donald Trump's tweets. I mean, give me a break. Really. Secondly, intimidation.
How do you really feel, Alfred?
What? Yeah, I mean,
Really feel?
yeah, intimidation. Oh, let me call up the big bag lawyers. Oh, this will intimidate them. Let me go have them file a fraudulent, faulty lawsuit that's going to bite me in the rear end and shoot me in the foot. Hey, Ed Jack, I used to be the cooperating attorney for the New York Civil Liberties Union. I was one of the lawyers in the Panther 21 trial. Are you crazy suing this newspaper? What are you, crazy? Do you know that the FBI went in there and tried to accuse the Panthers of a plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty? Do you know that the case was dismissed like in 20 minutes after the FBI and the Department of Justice went after the Panthers for 20 years? I mean, and the first is deflection. Hey man, go back to Czechoslovakia. Maybe you could make the Czechs. Oh, there is no more Czechoslovakia. We got to go to Slovak or the Czech. Oh, were you from the Czech Republic or are you from Slovakia? But I think you should go back there, man, or go back to office supplies, because I tell you, in the multidimensional world, you ain't cutting it. You're a dip. Deflection, intimidation, and panic. And guess what? This is the United States of America, where the First Amendment in the Constitutional Convention of 1789 was signed, bro. And guess what? You plumb out of luck. He dicho, I have spoken. And take that. And as a professor of law that used to teach this stuff in government department at the University of Texas. And as they say, don't mess with Texas, little boy, up there in Colorado in Boulder. Yeah, I used to go to the National Center for Atmospheric Science in Boulder. I used to visit them. I was one of the environmental Ford Foundation. We used to go and evaluate the Environmental Defense Fund out of Boulder, Colorado. I remember I spent a lot of time at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. I spent a lot of time at the National Public Radio Station in Boulder, Colorado, 1987. Wasn't that where you came in 1988? Found Gaia.com. I said, why did you do that? Is it true? Is it true what Jem says, that you report to your CIA cutout? Is that true? I am commenting on publicly available documents now. This is what the press does. And you'd better learn American ways, not Czechoslovakian ways, because Czechoslovakia don't exist. It was deconstructed, like your lawsuit was deconstructed. Your alleged lawsuit was deconstructed. So I say dip, deflection, intimidation, and panic. And this is nowhere near what Fox News does to CNN or what CNN does to Fox News. Ain't that right? I mean, this is nowhere near the second anuses that are drilled into American public figures as the CEO of multi-million-dollar corporations are public figures for the purposes of Sullivan versus New York Times under the First Amendment. So everything I'm saying is utterly protected, and everything that my fellow anchor, Patty Greer said, and everything that my fellow anchor, Laura Eisenhower. And I'm saying this for emphasis. Turn on the television and listen to CNN, listen to NBC, listen to PBS, listen to Fox News. We're relatively genteel. We're ascending souls. We're not with your agenda of false ascension memes. We're not with that. Now, so that's my little rant for the day.
I love my team. And what I think we have going for us is that we are three of many. You know, if they think that I'm working alone, or if any of these gem drops went just to me, which I'm sure they didn't, they went out to my whole team. And whoever else they chose that they trusted, it went out to their whole team. And I think that's what Gaia now doesn't get, is that there's really great, powerful people working together. Unfortunately for the UFO field, it doesn't appear to include the speakers anymore, because all of them are under an NDA, which in my book is called a gag order. And the only reason to make people have a gag order is if you're doing something that you're guilty of and you don't want people to know. If you're proud of what you do, you should let your employees talk about it openly. But if you've got cameras and microphones in every room, as was stated on the glassdoor.com website about Gaia, in numerous posts, they're being watched every inch. They said their computers are even being watched. There's something going on there that they don't want to get out. And why would anybody make all their employees sign an NDA if they were innocent? That, in my opinion, is pretty scary. And I think that's why David's not talking, Corey's not talking, and none of their speakers are talking. They're all scared of these people. Why? Well, because maybe it's true what David wrote. Maybe it's true what the employees are saying. But don't blame me for it. I'm just the messenger. I'm a filmmaker. And even though, what's his name, Jay Widener and their lawyer both said my films are not good enough for the public, I guess they weren't told about the awards and really how the public feels outside the walls of Gaia.com. I think that they're really unaware. This lawyer obviously has no clue that they hid my films is why I had no income from them. It wasn't the public, it was the company. And that, to me, is a false meme on ascension. Yoga, peace, love. Yeah, really?
Right. And we here at NewsEvolution at True2.co have been reporting on the public reports by David Wilcock of his resignation letter, which was a public document, of Corey Good's law complaints, of the GEM employee movement that released their documents on Facebook, and of the Glassdoor, which is a publicly available document. So we are doing what the founding fathers of the United States of America intended the press to do. We're the fourth estate. We're the fourth estate. The first three estates are the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And the fourth estate is the media. That's how it functions. Look, they may not have it in, they probably didn't have it in Czechoslovakia. And that's why Czechoslovakia, it don't exist no more. They have now the Slovak Republic, and what is it? The Czech Republic, okay? So you don't even have a country to go back to. So I suggest that you transform and get with the program and understand that we are the fourth estate under the US Constitution. And under the US Constitution, our role was enshrined in the Bill of Rights in the very First Amendment. And that's what I commend to you. Thank you. Now, so are there any, is there any other things that we should cover in, Patty, do you have anything that you would like to say in our roundtable on this subject? And please.
Well, I think the surprising thing was a journalist that called me today. Who knows if he has to do it in favor of them, because it's one of the locals, and I think that the corporation controls a lot of local situations. I know that I've had 9 packages stolen from the United States Post Office from my box in Boulder. That doesn't happen. They've got somebody backstage at the post office that stole the hard drives that came to me, and then everything else that came to me. So for me, it's not a big mystery, but I'm really proud of them for going public, because they shot themselves in both feet, not just one, because the media is all coming to me and them. They want their comments too. And my comment was, am I scared? No. Am I worried? No. If they go forward with this, it's full on exposure discovery. You think they want that? They'd have to be even worse than what we think to want full discovery open to the public about these claims by David and their employees that they are blaming me for. So I'm very grateful for the show that we're doing every week. We're going to bring you stories this heavy. And tonight's breaking news live, to me, I am nothing but grateful, because this is the way we're going to get to the next, is to tell the truth and stand up and stick to it. Nothing but the truth. So help me.
Thank you very much, Patty. And so thank you for your interest in NewsEvolution, evolutionary news at truetube.co. And please stay tuned for our forthcoming program on deconstructing the false ascension meme and revealing true ascension. Thank you.